Welcome back to 12 Months to Mastery Online. Today's video is pretty short, but very, very powerful. You want to really pay attention to this video because what I'm going to do is teach you how to quickly and easily pass any test a woman throws at you. So before we can really get into the specifics of how to pass tests, we need to define them. So what are tests? Tests, shit tests. I never got that one. Were you testing shit? Was she testing your shit? I didn't really get that, but that was a term for a long time. Congruence tests, as they're sometimes called, basically happen when a woman is not sure about you, when she's starting to get attracted, but she's not 100% sure if you're as cool as you seem to be. Ironically, this is weird and counterintuitive again, much like the unreactive stuff. Tests are a good thing. Women never test guys they consider asexual. You'll never see a woman test like an 80-year-old man or a morbidly obese guy or someone who she just thinks has absolutely zero chance with her. Women only test men that they could sort of see themselves attracted to in order to see, is this for real? Is this guy really cool, confident, masculine, sexy, whatever you're portraying yourself to be? Or is he just pretending to be like that and he's really needy, insecure, etc.? So the first reframe we want to adopt here is we want to start looking at tests not as a bad thing, but as an opportunity to not only gain value, but to also, and more importantly, move the conversation forward. So why do women test men? We already kind of covered the idea that they're trying to figure out if you're cool or not, but the reasons go a little bit deeper. Women test because they take more risk physically when they have sex. If a woman has sex and she gets pregnant, she's stuck with that for 9 months or until she wants to get an abortion. Men don't have that. Men, we can basically walk or run away depending on the situation. And because men can lie, because men can pretend or act or structure things to make it seem like they're something they're not, women need to have a way to sort out the losers from the guys who are actually cool and that she actually wants to get with. So women will generally test you by saying something kind of rude in a flirty way. Some common tests are, is this your best line? You say this to all the girls. Are you gay? Are you a comedian? Stuff like that. Comments about your clothing, your hair. I hate your hair. Anything like that. That's a test. It's flirty. It's not a question that's overtly rude. Stop talking to us. I'm not interested. Leave us alone. Anything like that is not a test. That means the girl actually wants you to leave her alone. You have to understand the difference between women testing you and women actually wanting you to go away. Now, luckily for you, dear listener, I have created and successfully taught my 100% foolproof system for handling any test a woman throws at you to hundreds of guys who now all have no problem passing women's tests. Passing tests is really easy. It's harder to identify which tests you want to take seriously and which tests you want to ignore. So the 3-step formula, pretty simple. The first step is you want to agree. You never disagree. That's the first mistake most guys will make when they're getting tested. Their first inclination is to disagree and argue as to why they're not the way the woman's saying they are. Bad mistake. Second step is to absurdify. And when you're absurdifying, what you're really trying to do is you're trying to show her that you don't take the situation in any way seriously. You're making it absurd. And lastly, most importantly, change the subject. This is where 99% of guys go wrong. So let's zoom in a little bit more detail on each of these, fill in a little more knowledge, and then we'll go over some mistakes guys make when it comes to testing or getting tested. First step, agree. One of the most important rules of socializing is the idea that you want to avoid qualifying yourself. We'll have a whole video lesson on this later on. When a woman tests you, any direct answer that disagrees, any disagreement, that should say any disagreement, not any direct answer, will look like you're qualifying yourself and cause you to fail the test. Your girl's like, are you a player? Why don't you have a girlfriend? Why are you single? Any direct answer or disagreeing answer is going to look like you're going to qualify yourself. Like, let's take the test, are you a player? If you answer no, you're like, no, I'm flattered you think that, but, I'm really a nice guy. You're going to start qualifying yourself for being a nice guy. She's going to assume you're more of a player. On the flip side, let's say you say yes. Let's say you're like, yeah, I am. I'm a bit of a player. Then she's going to think you're just trying to impress her. So instead what we want to do is we want to just agree and then absurdify. We don't want to give real arguments either way. So what we want to use is something that I got from improv classes called the yes and frame. And the yes and frame is basically an exercise where you do improv scenes and you're not allowed to say no to anything. Anything that your partner says, you have to say yes and continue to go. That's the frame behind passing tests. It's yes and. And the and part is the absurdify. Absurdifying is a term that I borrowed from Brad P. because I think it really shows the importance of exaggerating the test to the point of ridiculousness. Again, when I say absurdify, I mean you need to absurdify, make it ridiculous. The point of absurdifying is that it shows the girl you aren't taking the question or test seriously, which shows how silly it actually is to be asking something like that. So again, we'll take, are you a player? The girl goes, are you a player? You say this to every girl, don't you? I go, yeah, girl, I actually wrote the player book. I actually can only talk to you for another 2 minutes because I have to talk to every girl in here tonight, and I've got to have sex like 5 or 6 times before 2 a.m. So I got to get started because, obviously this isn't working. Again, take it to the extreme. If a girl's like, yeah, are you gay? I might go, yeah, I'm totally gay. I love the cock. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I mean, I'll sleep with you, but that's just a one-time exception. I love the cock. Again, take it to the extreme, but make it funny. Make it absurd. So she sees, okay, that was a stupid question. That's why he's making fun of it, because the question in and of itself was dumb. And then lastly, but definitely not least, you want to make sure that you change the subject. A lot of guys get into these back and forth exchanges when they get tested. They get tested and they absurdify, and then the girl comes back and tests them again or plays into the scenario, and they keep it going, but that actually leads to them either saying something stupid because they're trying to one-up this girl, or to going backwards in the interaction. Once you pass a test, you gain value. What happens is the girl tried to test you and you passed. You went through it. You agreed, you absurdified, and then you changed the subject. So she goes, oh, that was stupid. Okay, I'm not going to test him anymore because he just, he passes. He's actually cool. So once you pass the test, once you absurdify and she laughs, as soon as she laughs, change the subject. and act as if the test never even happened. Blink it out of your reality. It's like, do you say this to every girl? Totally. I got this out of the How to Pick Up Girls for Dummies book, and I really need to circulate. So it was really nice to meet you. Actually, you know what? You totally remind me of my friend Amanda. Change the subject. Act like it never happened. Pass the test, gain a little value. She tests you again, same thing. Agree, absurdify, change the subject. Girls never notice this pattern. It's just the way cool people handle being tested. You don't want to handle it with a sense of humor and a smile rather than getting angry or trying to reassert dominance. All right, now there's two big mistakes that I see guys make when it comes to testing specifically. So I'm going to save you some serious time and worry right now by explaining what they are and what to look for. The first big mistake guys make is they assume everything is a test. Not everything is a test. If a girl asks you to watch her purse while she goes to the bathroom, that's a good thing. If she asks you how long your longest relationship was, that's a good thing. If she asks you what you do for a living, that's a good thing. Tests happen when they're kind of rude, like she's being feisty. She's like, oh, that's a really cool leather jacket. Crosses are so in right now. That's a test. If she's like, oh, I like your jacket, that's not a test. So be aware of when she's messing with you, when she's teasing you. Testing is another way for when she teases you, knowing how to respond. Don't make everything a test, because not only will you stress yourself out and make yourself really nervous for nothing, but you'll also react to a bunch of things you don't have to react to. And as we learned in the last video, it's really important to be non-reactive and to maintain your emotional stability. Number 2, acknowledging every test. Remember the number one rule of pickup. Ignore anything that can't help you. If a girl says something and it sounds like a test, but you can ignore it the first time. She'll bring it up again if she wants to bring it up. For example, buy me a drink is like an example of a test. The girl's like, buy me a drink. And, or she's like, are you going to talk to me or are you going to buy me a drink? So again, you want to agree, absurdify, and change the subject. So if the girl's like, buy me a drink, I'm going to agree. I would go, I totally should buy you a drink. But the problem is that you're totally like a player girl. Like as soon as I buy you a drink, you're going to be gone. You're like the drink collector. Now I can tell. Right? And then change the subject. My friend Mary's like that. But again, you don't have to acknowledge everything. If a girl says, buy me a drink, the first thing I'm going to do is just ignore it and keep talking. And if she brings it up 2 times, then I'll deal with it. But at first, we want to ignore. Ignorance really is the powerful weapon when it comes to being non-reactive and passing tests. So don't be afraid to ignore things. You don't have to acknowledge every test. You don't have to create tests for yourself. If it's going well and she's not testing you, you don't have to look for a test because you think girls always test you. Some girls test a lot. Girls on the East Coast, they're very into testing. In the United States, some girls don't. Some girls just kind of smile and make doe eyes. Some girls just don't talk that much but are into it. Every girl is different. You don't always get tested, but when you do get tested, I've taught you how to handle it. Which brings us to today's recap. Today we talked about what tests are. They're little subconscious ways the girl checks to see if you are what you're pretending and saying you are. We also talked about why women test men, because they take more of a physical risk and because men can lie. We can pretend to be these things that are attractive when it's not true. Then I explained my 3-step process formula for passing any test. Write this down, remember it, scrawl it into your arm like Jim Carrey in that Weird Numbers movie. First step is agree. You never disagree. Women test you, never disagree, never argue. You don't want to mess the vibe up by arguing. Agree. Yes, and absurdify. Make it absurd. Take it to the extreme, make it funny. And then 3, change the subject. Move on. Move off of the idea of whatever she's testing you about and move on to a new conversational subject that moves the conversation towards sex. I also warned you about the two biggest mistakes guys make when it comes to getting tested, which is assuming everything's a test or reacting to every test. Remember, it's often almost always better to ignore things that can't help you. Exercise time. All right, your exercise this week, pretty simple. Take out a clean sheet of notebook paper, and on it, write down any 10 different tests you can imagine. Ideally, you want to start with the ones that you get. For example, I used to get tested on being gay a lot. Sometimes I get tested now on being smooth, being a player. Write down the ones you get tested on. If you get asked if you're a comedian, if you get asked if this is your pickup line, if you get asked if you're doing a survey, if you get hassled about your clothes, haircut, age, anything like that, write it down. And then go through and solve them using the 3-step formula. Write down, okay, agree. Girl says, you're too old to be hitting on me. Agree, absurdify, change the subject. Girl says, I hate your shirt. Agree, absurdify, change the subject. Do that 10 times. This will get you a feel for what this process feels like, and then eventually you'll start to do it in the real world, and you'll find yourself doing it pretty easily. Once you get a feel for this process, there's not a lot of field work that goes into it. It's more just recognizing when you should respond to a test and then using the 3-step formula. That's going to wrap us up for this week. Next week, we're going to be moving out of the attraction phase. I know, we've been in the attraction phase for a couple months now, and we're going to start talking about the idea of qualification, what it is, how it works, how it moves us through the interaction, the various forms of it, etc., etc., etc. So, really excited because, in my opinion, qualification, it's definitely, if not the most important skill, one of, maybe, it has to be the most important skill. It is the most important skill you will learn from dealing with women. So you definitely won't want to miss that. And we're going to talk about qualification for the next month or so. So you've got a lot of videos on qualification coming. I'm going to give you a thorough and deep knowledge, understanding, and ability to apply qualification because, like I said, it is the most important thing. So, see you then.